Hi, welcome to Gene Rants. I'm Gene, and today we're going to be talking about birth rates, specifically the American birth rate, which is falling, and that's going to cause a lot of problems if it continues. But well, if you've been watching these vlogs for a while, you know me. I try to find, I'm an optimistic person by nature, even though I do rant sometimes, hence the title of this vlog, Gene Rants. But I do try to find the good in the bad. I try to make lemonade out of lemons. So that's what I'll be doing today. I'll be giving you some bad news, but maybe some good news too, in a kind of offhanded way. But the birth rate, we'll be getting into specifics. I'll give you some specific figures. I'm going to be showing you a chart, but the overall birth rate is falling, and if it falls too much, that causes a lot of problems, especially when you have a welfare state. Well, I mean, it causes problems, and it causes problems anyways when you have just you build houses and then there are fewer people to buy houses, then you lose your housing industry because you just have a lot of empty houses. They go to waste and so on and so forth. If you're a farmer growing crops, you have fewer people that consume the crops. But if you have a welfare state, as we have, well, to give you one example, I was born, as it won't surprise you looking at me, I was born in 1952. Now, in 1952, Social Security, the whole idea of people get mad, or liberals get mad when you say that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. Well, it's not a Ponzi scheme. I mean, that was a criminal enterprise, but it's based on the idea that the way a Ponzi scheme would work is that you'd have people contribute, like, oh, I'm a genius investment advisor, invest with me, you'll make zillions of dollars, and hundreds of thousands of people put their money in my investment fund, and then I report that the fund is going up and making money, and then people say, oh, look how these Gene is a genius. Look how my account is going up. Look how much that fund is going up. And wow, but you get to a point where I'm going to enjoy some of my profits. I'm going to take some of my money out, and they take some of the money out, and then another person, and the problem is that the fund is actually going down. Which I will assure you, I am not an investment genius. So what happens is that the money that people were taking out, the supposed profits, it was actually the money that other people were contributing to open the accounts, open their own accounts. That works. A Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme, that works as long as the number of people contributing to putting money into the fund is much greater than the amount of money that people are taking out. You can see that. So that's when people say Ponzi scheme for Social Security, that's what they mean. It's obviously it's a benevolent enterprise. It's not a criminal enterprise, but the same idea. If more people are taking money, retirees growing older and collecting Social Security, than the number of younger workers contributing to Social Security, the whole thing collapses. And so to give you an example, I said I was born in 1952. In 1952, first of all, you didn't have these the Social Security tax increase. They hadn't happened, or some of them hadn't happened yet. So the cost of Social Security, the contribution was smaller, and that was because for every person who was collecting Social Security, 16 and a half people were contributing to it, or we'll just round that off to 16, unless you're King Solomon and you're cutting people in half. So 16 and a half statistically. So we'll say 16 people putting money into Social Security, compared to for every person who was taking money out, number one. Number two, if people aren't living as long, then they aren't taking the money out for as long if you're keeping the retirement age at 65. And as you now know, For certain people, younger people, it's now 67. It may go up again because we're all living longer. And so if you're collecting Social Security for 40 years, you have to remember when Social Security was created by Franklin Roosevelt in 1932. It became effective 1933 or 35, but the life expectancy was 65 years old, 67 for women, 63 for men. So you average it, you get 65, and they set it at a number instead of a formula. So if most people didn't, Franklin Roosevelt himself died at the age of 63. He never lived to collect any Social Security that he created the program. He never collected a dime from it. And so most people, that was the whole idea of it, that you have to work as long as you're physically able to work. And then when you're too old and decrepit to work, then this would be money that you would have to survive because it's not your fault. You want to work, but you can't. But now you get people. I'm 73 right now. I'm perfectly healthy, and I do well. I may retire now from real estate. I could have retired at 65, but I kept doing it. I'm physically able to work, and so the point is that. If you have, well, I said 16 and a half people contributing to Social Security for each person who collects it. That was 1952. Today, the number is 2.7, so less than 3 statistically, but we'll round it off to 3. Only 3 people, you see. So if you get to a point where one person is contributing to Social Security for every person who collects it, or you need to have one person contributing to Social Security for every 2 people that are collecting. You see the idea how it collapses, and that's my point. Why a falling birth rate that's one reason why it's a real big problem. You're having problems in China and in Japan, especially where the population growth, the birth rate is less than the death rate. So you're having, or what they say, replacement rate. Now the replacement rate is 2.1. Okay, statistically, 2.1 children have to be born for every old person who dies, just to keep. That's not to increase the population. That's just to replace and keep the population as it is. So because people die, from accidents and things like that too, war. So the point is that we have a problem in this country. We're not as bad as, say, Japan, but we do have a declining birth rate. And if it reaches a certain point, that is a problem. And that is the bad news. Now, the making the lemonade out of lemon is what I'm going to give you now. It's kind of macabre, I guess, or perverse in a way. But I just had to share this because it was interesting. When it shows the difference between liberals and conservatives, which I will get to in a moment. But I have to share a quick 3-paragraph quotes, because the information I'm about to give you comes from an organization called the General Social Survey. And I just want to tell you who they are so you understand that they're a credible source. And I link to their website in the description to this vlog, so you can visit the website yourself and evaluate, decide how seriously you want to take these numbers. But they look pretty good to me. I mean, pretty accurate and legitimate to me. So let me just give you some information about the General Social Survey. The General Social Survey, GSS, is a nationally representative survey of adults in the United States conducted since 1972. The GSS collects data on contemporary American society in order to monitor and explain trends in opinions, attitudes, and behaviors. The GSS has adapted questions from earlier surveys thereby allowing researchers to conduct comparisons for up to 80 years. The GSS contains a standard core of demographic, behavioral, and attitudinal questions, plus topics of special interest. Among the topics covered are civil liberties, crime and violence, intergroup tolerance, morality, national spending priorities, psychological well-being, social mobility, and stress and traumatic events. Altogether, the GSS is the single best source for sociological and attitudinal trend data covering the United States. It allows researchers to examine the structure and functioning of society in general, as well as the role played by relevant subgroups, and to compare the United States and other nations. So that's who they are. Now I'm going to put up a chart. Actually, it's two charts. One is for the United States. This will be the chart on the left, and on the right will be the chart for the world. Where these figures I'm giving to you are only for the United States. So ignore the chart on the left. I'm showing both charts just so I can fit in the source data below both charts. So here are the charts, and this is what I found in a way surprising and not surprising. As I said, ignore the chart on the right, though it does show the same thing worldwide, but we're concentrating on the chart on the left. The source, it's a completely different source for the chart on the right, and we're really concerned only about the United States, the GSS survey. So as you can see, on top of the chart, you have the light blue line, conservatives, and below that, dark blue line, progressives. And as you can see, the birth rate was about the same for both groups around 1980. But after that, you see a sharp decline. Well, you see declines on both for both progressives and conservatives, but you can see the progressive line is it's steeper and it goes down farther. And in fact, if you look at that chart, you see today the number is 1.8 for 1.8 people, children born for everyone who dies. That's what that means. So there, for every old geezer like me who dies, which I hope won't be for a while, personally, but 1.8. So I told you 2.1 is the replacement rate. So 1.8 means that progressives they're dying out faster than they're reproducing. Then old progressives are dying out quicker than new progressives are being born. And then you're seeing people switching, younger people switching to, because of Donald Trump, I guess, going MAGA and going to the right. Now you see the upper line, the conservatives also going down, but you see there they are at about 2.5. So 2.1 is the replacement rate. So you see that's the lemonade out of lemons. I should have said if you're a conservative. If you're a conservative. If you're a progressive, liberal, this news is not so good for you because you're going extinct if that trend that you're seeing in that chart keeps up. And you could see the same thing happening to conservatives to be fair, but at a much slower rate if it keeps going down. But you can see right now from about the year 2000 or so, you see that the conservatives, it's only gone down about 0.1%, much steeper decline for the progressives. And that is, well, I guess that's making lemonade out of lemon. I mean, the lemons, and you could see why it explains a lot of the worldview of liberals and a lot of their policies and things that say fossil fuels or whatever. Well, they're not going. They're not going to be around. They don't care. Their birth rate is going down. So if you're not going to have children, then you don't have to worry about what what your children's future are going to be like, what America is going to be like a few years ago, few years from now. Let a whole bunch of jihadist sympathizers, terrorists into the country, because if we're all speaking Arabic 30 years from now, why should a liberal care? Because he won't be around, or some of them won't be around, but they'll have no children to live in that world. You see, it's we conservatives who will be living in that world, and that's why we care a lot about these issues. We care about who we let into the country. We care about reforming, or ideally repealing and replacing Obamacare, because we're going to need health care. Our children and grandchildren are going to need health care. Liberals aren't going to have that problem. And to give you, there's an amazing fact that I remember that I'm going to share to wind, because liberals, they say, well, it was he's obviously, I mean, King Charles obviously is not American, but he once said that human beings, people, are a cancer on the world, and there should be few of us. And you have the whole idea of population control. Now they don't talk about that so much, but in the 60s they did. That was liberals that were worried about the world becoming too crowded, and about not having enough children. And you have nowadays, women should all marriage is slavery. Women should not have children. They should just have careers, and that's their worldview. But it really hurts them, because here is an amazing fact. Now, I am guessing that a lot of you watching this weren't even born in the year 2000, the presidential election of 2000, but those of you who are a bit older, you remember, but for those of you who don't remember, that was an extremely close election. It was George W. Bush, George Jr. versus Al Gore. And it all boiled down to, you wouldn't believe, hard to believe maybe today, because Florida is so red, is so conservative. Trump won by such a large margin in Florida, but in that day, they were basically tied, in electoral votes, George Bush and Al Gore. It all came down to Florida, one state, and there were a lot of Supreme Court cases and recounts and things, because George Bush won Florida by 500 votes. That's all it was. 500 votes decided the entire 2000 election. 500 vote difference between Al Gore and George W. Bush being president. And we can just see how different we can speculate on how different history would have been. Now, why do I mention that? Because Roe v. Wade, abortion, now that the Supreme Court thankfully overturned, and liberals are just screaming to the rafters that that their precious Roe v. Wade was overturned. But this is the amazing fact: 1973 was the year that Roe v. Wade was decided, and suddenly it became a lot easier to have abortions. Now, just as reflected in that chart, who was having the abortions? Liberal women were having abortions. I mean, I'd say that no conservative women had abortions, but there were many more abortions, a much higher abortion rate among liberal women, as you can imagine. So as you're seeing in these numbers here, the point being that by time you get to the election of 2000, if all the abortions that had in Florida that had not, all the abortions in Florida that had been had been performed since 1973 until the year 2000, the 2000 election, had they not been performed, Al Gore would have carried Florida by 38,000 votes. Okay, because liberals got the abortion, the abortion virtually on demand. They got what they wanted, and it cost them an important 2000 election. They lost by only 500 votes in an election that had they not had all those boards, had Roe v. Wade not been decided the way it was. They would have carried, the Democrats would have carried Florida by 38,000 votes. So chew on that for a while, my liberal friends. And your comments always welcome in the comments section below the video. Share this video with anyone you think would benefit from it. If you could subscribe, that's always great. Subscribe. Did I say share this video with anyone you think would benefit from it? Most of all, come back and see me again. I'd love to see all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.